You're listening to Arsenal Pass, a flesh and blood podcast for players by players. And all about strategy, leveling up, and the latest news in the world of Wraith. Welcome to Arsenal Pass.
Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 235 of Arsenal Pass. Hayden Dale here with Pankaj Bhojwani. As always, this week on the pod we are talking dark horses, ? There is a lot happening through this Pro Quest season. We're now 2 weeks deep into Pro Quest season. We're fast approaching the World Championships in Philadelphia, just a month away. We've got two constructed formats on the go. We've got Classic Constructed and we've got, of course, Living Legend with this Pro Quest season, but also the format that we will be playing at the World Championships alongside Classic Constructed. Not to mention, there's a bunch of battle hardens and things coming out for this format. So there is lots to discuss on the pod today in terms of updates with the Pro Quest season, but we get our first snapshot of Living Legend data, which we'll dive into. And there's a bit of some interesting things happening. So across both those formats that I'm excited to talk about. But before all that, Pankaj, how was your week in flesh and blood? Fresh, or I was going to say direct from Singapore still?
Still here, about to leave from Singapore this coming weekend. So just in a few days, actually, my trip's almost done. And yeah, Hayden, it is wildcard season, I think. Well, not exactly wildcard season, but there are some interesting wins that have been picked up across Pro Quests this week, which I'm really interested to get into. My week has been fine. I played one Pro Quest here in Singapore, out in One Collectibles. Shout out to One Collectibles, local store in Singapore.
I love the team there as well. They're also so nice.
Yeah, it was good. I went to play in that Pro Quest. I brought Verdance, as I mentioned last week.
Well, you were saying Verdance or Syndra, but you went with Verdance in the end.
Yeah, Verdance or Syndra. I went for Verdance in Singapore because I expected there to be more aggro in Singapore, from what I understand of this matter, and I didn't want to play aggro mirrors, so I played Verdance instead. And I lost to Gravy and a Verdance mirror. Both of them, I would say it's more on me for lacking the experience that I think I would have liked in those matchups, which is, I would put it more on me than anything else, which I think is a little bit to be expected. Haven't had as much time to practice as I would normally like for a Pro Quest season because of the travel and everything. But yeah, I had a ton of fun. It was just nice getting to play at locals in my home country, which is awesome. Seeing all the faces I've seen before, typically when they fly to different things and we meet. It was nice just go to a local game store here. And playing that. So I went 2-2, and then I just dropped. I didn't finish playing the rest of the Pro Quest because I had some plans with family. As I told them, I was like, if I don't do well, I'll come and join for dinner. But if I do well, then I'm going to have to skip dinner. And I didn't do so well, so I just dropped it and went to go do that. Chu Heng ended up winning that Pro Quest that I was at. So that was awesome. And he was on Verdance. And I should take it down. So yeah.
How many players?
That was my week. It was 38. So it was 6 rounds of Swiss. Before I cut to top 8.
Cool.
Yeah. How was your week?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get to play much Flesh and Blood this week. Unfortunately, I had to dip out of playing Pro Quest this weekend for personal reasons, unfortunately. So I had to miss this weekend. It's so interesting. So I've got 2 more, which I'll talk about in a second. 2 more to go, and I'm definitely trying to punch my ticket to Yokohama. But the interesting thing is, Pro Quests, I would say, last season were, I'd say, mixed in my region in terms of turnout. This season has been bonkers. They have been huge, and I'd say I wasn't necessarily. I'm not sure. I wasn't expecting it. I'm not sure what the catalyst is in terms of the game's definitely been growing through Asia and Europe, and I think North America has maybe stagnated a little bit from all the things I'm hearing. Again, this is anecdotal of Pro Quest turnouts and things like this, right? But in Sydney, it definitely had dipped off, and it's just come back with a absolute vengeance and a resurgence, and it's so cool to see. 2 weeks ago now, when I played in Pro Quest, it was capped out. These are, they were capping out mid 40 players, 48 players, things like this. So it's just really cool to see. So I'm not playing Pro Quest this weekend. There's one tomorrow, but I have a wedding tomorrow, so my friend's getting married, which is super exciting. So I'll have to skip that one. Not one on Sunday, and then there's 2 more next weekend: a Living Legend and a Classic Constructed. So I'm definitely going to be playing a bunch in the next week, first of all, to really learn the Classic Constructed format a bit deeper. I think I have a pretty good understanding now. We're going to talk about some of those things, but there's potential. I'm casting Sydney in 3 weeks' time, and I don't know what might show up for me to cast in the booth like at this point. So I'm going to try and just get a bit more of a wider understanding on this format because there's a lot of heroes bouncing around out there and getting wins.
And that's exactly why we're going through this episode. We're going to talk about all the wild cards, all the dark horses you're going to need to cast at Sydney, man.
Or that you might be casting at Worlds.
True, yeah. And I think that's actually, for me, I think that was the only Pro Quest I could attend this season, which is kind of sad. I thought I'd be able to go to one more once I'm back in Seattle, but turns out I think the only one that's happening the weekend after I get back is like really far away, so I don't know if I'll be able to make it to that one.
Gotcha.
But the Seattle Bellharden's coming up the same weekend as the Calling Sydney, actually, and I will be playing in that, so that might be my next event.
Good segue to the news, I reckon.
Let's move on to the news. We have the 6th birthday live stream of Flesh and Blood's 6th birthday live stream coming up. It is, what's the date? 19th October for a bunch
20th.
of regions.
Yeah, 19th or 20th.
New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're like New Zealand and Australia, it's 20th October. Various time zones. Definitely go check out like which time zone, what time it's going live for you in your region, the listener. And it's going to be exciting. I think I saw a screenshot of a tweet or something that looked like there's going to be like a dev talk with Brian definitely involved, I think James as well, which will be awesome. And the tweet also mentioned something about another new era for Flesh and Blood, which is something I feel like we've heard before. I'm curious what this new era is going to be about.
What era do you think we're in Flesh and Blood? Is this like Third Age?
So the first new era was when they moved away from first edition, right? They moved away from like first edition thing. And then there was like a second new era. Like the book banning, I think, was another era for sure.
I agree.
And I think there was one more. Nah. Is that another era?
I think we're in. I think we're in. Oh. I mean, you can cut it in different ways, but
yeah. What would you say? Once they said there'll be no more expansion sets. Like, there'll just be expansion slots, but no more supplementary sets. Was it called?
I kind of tie that in more than the first edition stuff personally. Like that's more of the first cut to me. So I think we're about to, depending on what the news is, might be the 4th era we enter, or the 4th age rather. I'm going to call it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, so we're currently 3rd era, and then this could be the 4th era. That's what they say. Any predictions for what's going to come up in the talk?
Yeah, well, they've listed a few. Yeah, so in terms of what the stream looks like, I mean, they've listed a few things that you can expect. So, Silver Age, so some more things around Silver Age. That's, I assume, going to be maybe some gameplay, because they love doing gameplay on these sorts of things. We might even see, I don't know, maybe new hero in this gameplay or something. But I think when it comes to Silver Age, I think there's going to be some more concrete about what this format might look like going forward in terms of the competitive nature of it and those sorts of things. So there's key announcements, right? I mean, I think there's going to be some form of product announcement. There's a dev talk with James and Brian, games and commentary featuring 2 new devs. I'm going to assume they are Blue Pitch devs. I'm going to assume that's Blue Pitch members. Rejected marketing memes, which just sounds funny, I guess. And then they've got Armory Deck gameplay. And they've got golf at the end, which, as someone who's really getting into golf recently, I'm super excited. But I assume that doesn't mean what we think it means.
Oh, you sound so old. You're getting into golf?
Dude, hey, Tarek Patel, he's a big golfer as well.
Okay.
I actually played golf when I was young, which is fun. I played golf between the ages of like 12, before high school, sort of like 11 to 14 sort of thing. And now I'm getting back into it. So,
actually, so did I. I have an uncle who's really into golf, and he tried to get all of us, like his daughters and me and my brother, into golf as well. He used to take us to a driving range, and like we had coaches and stuff. And then I was like, I don't know if this is for me.
I used to play like school tournaments and stuff like that. But anyway, I digress.
Oh, you were like intense. Okay, yeah, no.
I don't think this is golf as we know it. I think there's something else going on in there. So I don't know. Yeah, I think key announcements. I think product announcements. That's what I think we're gonna get something. I think Worlds is coming up, right? So I think they need to balance off what they put in the announcement now versus what they put into Worlds. I would say here's one thing I have about the keynote speeches. They always want Worlds to be a spectacle, right? Because it's the World Championships. What I would say though is the last couple of keynotes I would say have been quite long. There's quite a lot of info in them. I think, particularly London. I think they reduced a little bit in Singapore. So I think they can afford to split some of the maybe the lesser announcements into this birthday stream, and then some really big, or some and some. Split some of the big announcements.
Maybe. Yeah, I think at the keynotes, maybe they don't need to talk about every single battle harden that's coming up, especially with the increase in battle hardens, and they can
That's
just
true.
go more like, where are the callings coming, for
The
example.
video was cool though. The video they've used the last few times, the big like hype trailer
And
of
it
like
gets
events
so
coming out.
many cheers. Yeah. Like, every time, people see their own country, see their own city, it's like the whole place starts cheering, and that is a very nice thing to witness and be a part of when you're in the hall.
Yeah.
In terms of new products, by the way, did you see the tweet James posted out, which was about something he's been working on that's coming out in 2027, and it's a new Dromai?
Yes, I did. And as someone who likes Dromai, I'm definitely pretty excited about that.
Yeah, and as someone who likes Icelander, I was like, where is my second Icelander? Is it coming out next to Dromai? Please. Please.
We'll have to wait and see. I doubt they'd come together. I feel like, unless it was some kind of revisit of Uprising.
True, yeah, no, actually, Icelander's coming in 2026. Yes, thank you. Yes, perfect.
Fair.
Hold you to that.
Fair.
But yeah, was traveling to Volcor or something. I'm not really a lore
Yeah.
person. But I think Iceland was like traveling to Volcor during that time in Uprising, so maybe she's traveled somewhere else and we'll get to her a bit earlier.
True. What I'm excited about is and this is just, the thing I would love the most, and I don't think this is any way, shape, or form going to happen, by the way, that they go, hey, Dromai is coming, so is Icelander, so is Phi. We're revisiting Uprising with new versions of these heroes, and we've fixed the limit, because it's almost the best. I think Uprising is almost the best limited format, almost the perfect limited format, but it just falls short a little bit. But I don't think that's going to happen. And that's just me being selfish because I want a great limited format. But
yeah, that sounds pretty awesome. My only thing is that then we'll have 3 Draconic heroes.
yeah,
Also, Syndra was the first time we actually saw... Oh no, I guess Jarl was the first time.
we've probably lost Syndra by that time, by the way.
Oh, could be. I'm trying to think. There aren't too many like repeats of like talent and class.
No.
Okay, there was like Vincent, which is like but that replaced him. There are not too many like repeats of talent and
Prism,
class.
Vincent.
Where one of the heroes was like still legal.
Yeah.
Like Jarl came out after like Oldhim or whatever,
Yeah.
things like that. But this first, we don't commonly get 2 same talent class combination, and they're both legal in CC.
I don't think it's happening.
Maybe they expected Phi to have been gone by this point, which.
I don't think it's happening. I'm just wishful thinking. Anyway, we got some events coming out, Pankaj.
Yes, we have World Tour Houston this weekend, which is being casted by both Sams, which is going to be really, really cool. We've got Sam O'Byrne and Sam Dando.
Sam Squared.
Casting that. So, watch them when we like on a plane. Actually, even the live stream. I want you to catch up on the VOD because I'm flying during the time. Maybe I should pay for internet just for this, actually.
If it works, if it's good enough.
Yeah. Next weekend we have Baltimore, and then the weekend after that we have Calling Sydney, which you are casting.
I am.
Be awesome.
Yep, looking forward to it. And you'll be playing a Battle Harden that weekend in Seattle.
Yes. There was also a dev touch talking about Provoke, the card, or rather the inspiration for Provoke, which came from this Hut Heavy Hitters hero called Snyder Snarky Prick, which is interesting. I definitely recommend people to go read the dev touch articles if you haven't already. Yeah, they're just a fun peek behind the curtain. Snyder Snarky Prick was an internal hero which never got released. As a once per turn action, pay 1 resource, your next attack this turn gets Provoke, which is when this hits a hero, if it isn't defended by an attack action card, they discard. You have thoughts on this?
It also says go again, by the way. The name is hilarious. First of all, Snyder Snarky Prick is hilarious. Like, I wonder if they would have changed the name, or they would have ran with Snarky Prick, to be honest. I mean, I don't know how the context of that word is used in the US, but around different parts of the world, it's used as euphemisms and insults.
I think they would have changed it. Probably like taunt, like boastful something.
Yeah. I think it's cool. I mean, Heavy Hitters is such an interesting set, and to hear a bit more about the lore of the design process for that set is really interesting, because on the face of it, it looks like such a simple set. I think the interesting thing is obviously you have these heroes that have just had just no impact on the game, and from a constructor standpoint, right? Olympia, Betsy, and it's like, oh, imagine if we had maybe this hero would have been more interesting. I think this hero is cool. I think it's interesting. I don't think I would have particularly enjoyed it. It's just, when I say interesting, it's not interesting to me personally, but I think I can see why it might interest some people.
Yeah, I probably would have been interested in this hero had it released, but after reading the article, I'm glad that it didn't release. I could see how this just gets down to like the fatigue style end states that they talked about in the article, and that wouldn't be fun. Like when I see a hero like this, I want to play something that's like disrupting my opponent actively, which this kind of is.
Yeah.
But winning by like out mid-ranging them as you're disrupting them, not winning by like fatiguing them out of threats. So, yeah, I'm not too upset to not see this hero. I do want to say though, this does remind me of one aspect of warrior design, which kind of confuses me, and I'm not entirely sure why they've been pigeonholed into this thing, which is they specifically hate attack action cards. Like Heavy Hit has had this a lot, where a lot of the warrior cards were like, oh, if your weapon's being defended by an attack action card specifically, then you get this effect. And I just don't know why it needs to be so pigeonholed like that. Like Reprise is already, quite restrictive, and this is like a more restrictive Reprise. And you look at the assassin cards as like mirrors, and like Tarantula Toxin says it needs to be defended by a specific type of card, or Shred needs to be defended by a specific type of card. It's just that defending card gets -X.
Yeah.
And I'm just not sure why the warrior wants it to be so pigeonholed when they're not tied to as devastating on hits as the assassin ones. So that's a part. Bit of a gripe I have with the warrior design. It kind of bothers me, and reading this hero ability reminded me of that.
Yeah, I think creating on hits in warrior is a very interesting concept. That's the interesting part, I think, for sure. The piece of it around how strong this would have been is an interesting conversation. And as a Wizard player, Pankaj, you'd hate to see this coming in some ways, I'm sure. But at the same time, is naturally warriors just kind of weak into Wizard anyway. So I don't know. It seems like it might have been balanced.
Type of Wizard. If it's like a Verdance or something.
Sure. Yeah.
Is the attack gonna hit? I don't know. Or you can just defend it with.
Yeah. And then some heroes, like in some matchups, this hero's text box is just blank, right? Which is, be kind of a shame. Anyway, that was quite interesting. Should we get on to the Commander Cookout, Pankaj?
Let's go.
Commander Cookout this week. If you want to get your questions in, please do so. You can drop them in the YouTube comments below. You can drop them in Spotify as well if you'd like to in the comment section there. You can email us at arsenalpassfab@gmail.com. If you're an Arsenal Pass patron, you can drop your question in the Patreon Discord. There's a channel there for all your questions. If you see us in person, Pankaj will be at Worlds and Battle Hardened Seattle. I will be in Sydney. You can give us a handwritten note with your question. Just make sure it's fully legible and it has your full name on it so we can make sure to shout you out on the pod. This week, though, we're doing something that we do from time to time, which is we go away from some questions and we go to comments instead, and we dive into the comment section from this past week, because I think there's just a real spread of interesting comments and sort of discussion points and questions from the pod last week. So I'm just going to pull a few out, Pankaj, and get your thoughts. This first one comes from Jackie's, I'm going to say. Puffin is best deck in format. Aurora levels of 0 for 4s, 15 of them. Crushes Syndra, Fridge and Booms, has strong tech for Earth and Dynamo decks, T-Bone plus Plantier, has Mech AB suit, can play a second cycle with Cog in the machine, and backup is okay into Gravy as Bludger helps. Pankaj, what do you think? But Puffin's won some Pro Quests.
Puffin's on the thumbnail this week for a reason. I think when we talk about dark horses and wild cards in this meta, she is one of the first few I want to talk about. I think she has legs. I haven't fully determined her matchup spread yet.
Yeah.
But it seems interesting. It seems like the sort of hero I would not scoff if you told me you were bringing Puffin.
I would. But I don't know. I'm open to being proved wrong. I messed around with Puffin a lot when it first came out, but the new card does help a massive amount, and Puffin's certainly exciting to me. I would love to see Puffin work. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see whether this hero can make a bit more of a splash on like a bigger stage. But the Pro Quest that she won in, it was the Puffin Mirror Finals, which was very interesting. And it was a big Pro Quest too. It was like a 58 something. It was a large Pro Quest. It wasn't like I don't fully remember, but I watched the whole deck tech, actually. You know what? As we continue talking, I'll try and find...
We'll come back to you.
Link.
I'll go to the next one.
I But Puffin does seem somewhat promising. Like I do think the hero needs to be explored. It's probably still just going to be in like the dark horse territory, but not. Oh, this is embarrassing to bring it territory. And I think that's cool. I think that's a bit of a statement or indication of this meta as it's shaping up to be. We touched on this last week too. It's quite a skill expressive meta, and it's also quite an open meta where it's like there are these established top decks, but they aren't at the level of sheer oppression of, say, the Aurora and Enigma just a few months ago, just like 6 months ago, where it is kind of embarrassing to take something that's not those two. Here, like, it does feel like there are options, with maybe Verdance being a bit of an exception. I think she is maybe constricting the meta a little bit tighter compared to Syndra and Gravy, which is a weird statement to say because Gravy is the board state deck, but I guess there's enough aggro running around now that, like Puffin, for example, you have a game into Gravy, Syndra's game into Gravy, Asilia's game into Gravy, Desai is a game into Gravy. I just feel like Verdance is one that's maybe a bit more restrictive. But yeah, even so, it's like all three of these heroes aren't super, super oppressive, and you can bring heroes like Puffin. RKO as well, is showing some results. Like those were 17 that calling Hamburg, right, on RKO, which is just, it's interesting. It does feel like if you can occupy the spot where you have a bunch of reps into your opponent's deck, but they don't have those reps into you, and you can like really leverage that to win.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely talk more about that in the main topic of the pod. I think there's a good kind of lead in, so we'll put a pin in that. Come back to that one. Remember what Pankaj said, everyone, because there's some great points there about the dark horses, the wild cards of the format. I'm going to stick on the theme of just the meta, I guess, a little bit with the comments from last week, and we threw out a bit of a call. We were talking about Prism, and we said, where is Prism? Is it a riser right now? I said maybe it's the deck that's going to be on the rise the most over this next 2 weeks, but it's been in a really tough spot, and we put a call, and then we kind of talked about it, and we're like, actually, maybe not, maybe it's not the riser, right, because of a few issues that we were sort of potentially seeing with it, and then we put a call out. I was like, I'd love to hear from someone like Kevin, right, someone who's just an expert with the hero, and we got Smurf Fab himself to actually comment on the pod here, Pankaj, and says, I think y'all are right about where Prism is. Shizuoka meta was a terrible spot to bring Prism, KO being the hype. The season should see the meta move towards a playable meta for her, but there's going to be an upper limit, probably at the top of tier 2. So there you go, maybe similar to where we were talking. The tech against her continues to get better, but still none of the tech matches KO existing. As long as KO trends down, the meta gets better for her. If Syndra plus Gravy plus Verdance are 60 to 70% of the world's meta, I will be okay sitting down across from any of those. They aren't free, but all are games to be played, even when those three bring tech. Pankaj, what do you think? Still feeling the same about Prism as Kevin? Sort of change your mind at all?
Yeah, I think he brings up a great point about the restriction, not a restriction, how narrow the meta becomes at a high level event like Worlds. And we touched on this last week too, where funnily enough with this meta, as it gets more narrow, as people congregate more onto the top decks, the meta kind of opens up a bit wider, actually. Because, yeah, as Kevin's saying, when the KOs start dropping out, your Prisms can come in. I'll say your Asilios can come in, too. Asilio doesn't want to play against KO, but if people are focusing on Syndra, Gravy, and Verdance, then suddenly Asilio's like, hey, I can actually play in amongst these three. Like, Syndra's probably the worst, but you're pretty happy playing against Gravy and Verdance, and Prism's like similar, right? Where you're like, okay, cool, I can play against these three, I just really don't want to play against KO. Yeah. So it's funny how the narrowing of the meta actually opens it up a little bit more for some of these other decks, and yeah, I think I would defer to Kevin. Like, if he's saying these things about Prism, then just listen to him.
Yep. We got another comment. Verdance is stronger than ever from Mitchka D Wood. I agree. I think we'll talk more about that in the main topic of the pod. I love this comment. Just ban Scour and see what happens.
Ooh, what's that hinting at? Maybe Fang?
Well,
Fang's probably.
Yeah, Fang, but is it also just the fact of, like, Florian gets hosed? But Scour's just so good right now.
Oh, like, true, Florian, yes. Yeah, Florian.
Yeah. Like, I think Scour's just...
I forgot. I kind of forgot about Florian just because he, like, fully fell off, but yes, you're right.
Even like KO, it's like, is Cast Bones one of the best turns you can have? And then they're just like, Scour. Like a wild time Scour. Like, Scour, I think Scour's just really good right now because it's a blue 3 block that's just, like, so free to play, and it's when its upside is high. It just, just has massive upside. I think there's a great comment in response to this as well about Velda and Pleiades as well. Like, it just, Fang, all these heroes. Like, it's just such a good card right now. I could see, what I would like? Maybe restrict Scour. Maybe that's what we should do. I don't hate this call.
Yeah, they don't restrict in CC. I don't think we've.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, I guess we kind of saw that happen in like Ons, but that was just like a certain color, right? They've never
they
actually
banned colors.
said only one copy. Yeah, they do that in LL. So I'm not a big fan of restrictions because, like, down to one copy, because then it kind of feels like, oh, I got hosed this game because they drew their one-off, right?
Sure.
In the deck, it's like you play Fang into Verdant, so they only have one Scour, and then they find it right after you're online, and it's like, okay, I lost because they found the Scour at the exact time.
Yeah.
But a full banning, I mean, if you tell me like Verdance needs like a slap on the wrist, like needs some way to like tune it down, I don't think I'm going to disagree with that. So Scowl could be the hit. Scowl could be a very interesting hit. Yeah, now that I think about it, where like, I think she is stronger than ever for sure. I do agree with the spirit of the comment, but she's not. She isn't like Aurora tier where I'm like, okay, something needs to like seriously, because she isn't like Gravy tier like past meta where it was like, oh, something serious needs to get hit. But if something gets hit, I'm like, that it makes sense, as it should be like a small hit, and Skull might be like the perfect like small hit where it's like, ooh, now these other strategies are allowed to actually play, like Fang, for example. I think that could be kind of...
Yeah. 2 comments I want to finish up on. One was from Andre Judd saying, on the topic of Arthur, we spoke about Arthur and, of course, Arthur taking out the calling 2 weeks ago. I watched a day 2 game of his prior to top 8, and after the game, I was like, he's going to win this event. You can tell just by watching him play that he's a step ahead of almost everyone else. Crazy cool to see. Yeah, like I said, Arthur's one of my favorite players to watch play, and I haven't had the pleasure of casting an Arthur Trahay game yet, but I'm looking forward to doing that one day, because I think, just getting inside that man's mind as he plays games of Flesh and Blood is a fun thing to do. So, actually 2 more comments. Sorry, I said 2 more, but there's 2 more after. So, Pankaj, you were telling us for weeks now that Marlin is a good deck. Maybe you have to make a deck tech plus gameplay to finally gain some believers in your gospel. That was from Failed My Combo. Jokes aside, I'm genuinely interested also because I don't see a lot of Marlin content on YouTube.
Well, my response to this is that there is great Marlin content on YouTube. Just go to Flesh and Bad's channel. They do a lot of gameplay streams of Marlin, and they have done a deck tech video on Marlin, and typically every stream that they start when they're about to play Marlin for a couple of games, they also go over the deck list and the changes they made. They also made 3 top 8s across like 3 different pro quests on Marlin. They're trying to get Marlin's first LL points. Unfortunately, someone else got there before them. But yeah, go check out Flesh and Bad's channel. They have really, really good Marlin content. Nice.
And then the last one I'm going to shout out is just a segue to the pod main topic. Iceland is actually playable in Living Legend now. Counting on Warmongers, now you have 12 instant speed disruption, which is more than enough to brick your aggro opponents. Warmongers, CLF, Channel Blink Expanse, Hypothermia. But actually, someone points out Warmongers isn't the instant speed disruption that you might think it is, because it does say next turn. But it does mean it still is very, very impactful that that Icelander and Living Legend has Warmongers back. I don't think you can, the fact that you can just kind of, as someone James Hunt here says, you can just chain them, all these spells to just lock people out through specific turns. And because the format has been so aggressive, I think that's very true. So we'll talk about that. But LL Icelander back maybe.
I mean, I can agree with the sentiment that you can chain them, but you're not, like, this fact still stands that you're not doing anything while they are under this disruption. When you're using your action point on your turn, you're sending, like, a Wounded Bull in LL, which is, like, whatever.
Maybe that's not what you need to be doing. Maybe you need to be, like, kind of almost frost-hexing them or something. I don't know. Or setting up auras. What's the discard aura?
Insidious Chill?
Yeah, Insidious Chills. Use those times to set up Insidious Chills. I don't know. But anyway, I just think it's interesting. But we're going to talk about Living Legend. So maybe we just get straight on to the main topic of the pod. But if you do want to get your questions in for the Command and Cookout, please do so. We're always looking for more questions. Thanks to all those that commented on last week's pod. Main topic of the pod time, Split. we're going to split it across Living Legend conversation and some Classic Constructed conversation around Dark Horses and Wildcards. First, let's start with Living Legend because we didn't get week-one results of Pro Quest Living Legend as they made an emergency ban, effectively. They pulled forward the ban, which we spoke about last week. If you want to hear more about that, go and listen to last week's pod. Go and check out the article on fabtcg.com. But they did provide us with the week 2 of results. So like you said last week, Pankaj, kind of irrelevant results. Maybe that's why they don't want to publish them, and we'll start fresh this week. The Living Legend results for week 2 of Pro Quest season. Viserai claimed 25% of the Living Legend wins. Now, it's worth noting these amounts of Pro Quest for Living Legend are significantly less than Classic Constructed. I think ballpark, it's like 1 in 8 or 1 in 10 or something. Like it's a small percentage. It's like, it's 10 to 15% of these events are actually Living Legend. But Viserai took out 25%, so a quarter of the wins last week. So I'm going to assume that basically there was probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There was about 8.
I'm guessing it's 8, yeah.
8 events last week. So just bear in mind this is a very small sample size, right? But Viserai winning 2, and then Bravo, star of the show, Briar, Aurora, Dash, Chain, Kano all winning 1. I think the news here is that Runeblade is definitely not dead, though, because Viserai, Briar, Aurora, Chain, it's about half the wins, right? It came out of over half the wins actually came out of Runeblades last week.
Yeah, the Briar and the Chain ones in particular are maybe a little surprising because they're the Runeblades that get the most hosed by Warmongers.
Yeah.
Viserai, not so much, because he just calls peace and makes 10 rune chants on you, and then asks you to go again, and then
and Living Legend
disrupt him again.
Yeah,
and then he pops Skulda and 40s you, right? So Viserai not so hosed by Warmongers. Aurora as well, not hosed by Warmongers, even when Aurora was in CC, right? Half a deck are instants, so she doesn't really care about Warmongers either. I'm surprised to see her on this list at all, to be honest, because from what I've been hearing, a lot of people say she's just worse than Briar. Yeah, which kind of makes sense, right? Briar has a whole new element, has a better,
very good
hero ability, but Briar gets more hosed by Warmongers than Aurora does, so maybe this is a bit of a response towards that, where you can play Aurora to be more resilient against that card. And then Star, Volcano, and Dio all winning 1 each as well. Makes a lot of sense. Can't read too much in this data, of course, as you pointed out. There just aren't enough. But I think Viserai leading the pack makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Kano with a win. Interesting.
I'm actually pretty sure that's one of my locals, actually.
Okay.
That happened while I was away as well. Yeah, I mean, has all the books.
Yep, Kano gets the books.
Kano gets the books. You press the Kano button, and sometimes you get there, right?
This wizard has his tomes he gets to read. Yeah, Starvo's still hanging around. I think that's not a surprise. I think Starvo, in theory, maybe looking to be the best deck post the changes that we saw last Monday.
I think Living Legend testing starts with Viserai, looking at Viserai and Starvo.
Yeah,
I think
sense.
those 2 are the pillars of the Living Legend format. And as you're preparing for Worlds, you start there, and then you look into maybe stuff that can answer the 2 of them, or how you can tech them to work against each other in the mirror. Yeah. But it's just these 2 is where it starts. Starvo is definitely very much a player.
Traditionally, Starvo is coming on top in that matchup as well. So, yeah.
Wait, when you say traditionally, which era are you talking about? Because in CC back in the day, I would say Viserai was slightly ahead.
Oh, no, I would say Starvo was slightly ahead.
Wait, we're talking about pre-Skeletor ban, right? Like when Viserai still had Skeletor?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I thought I would have said Viserai was slightly favored.
I think it's pretty close. I mean, I played Viserai during that. I mean, I always played Viserai, but I played Viserai over Starvo in that format because I thought it was close enough that I wanted to be on the Viserai side because I thought the matchup into Prism was better as Viserai than it was as Starvo. I mean, I think both have good matchups, but I think Viserai had the better matchup. Yeah, I think it's pretty close. I wouldn't begrudge anyone saying it was slightly Viserai favored or slightly Starvo favored. In terms of in this format though, where Starvo's under more restrictions, I think it is Viserai favored potentially. That's kind of where my mind goes to.
I think so too.
Yeah.
So then the question becomes, what could be the third point of the triangle that kind of comes in that can prey on Viserai?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question.
It's not Icelander. I don't think it's Icelander.
No, it's not. It's not.
I wish it was, but I don't think it is.
Is it an illusionist? Like traditionally, I mean, maybe it's not Prism, but is it Dromai? Is Dromai good into Viserai?
No.
No?
I
Okay.
feel like there hasn't been an illusionist that's going into Viscerai like ever. Like Dromai, that red line deck into Viscerai.
Well, but those
Bro, that
Viscerai
matchup
decks,
was
but those
so bad.
but those Viscerai decks were post Scalata, right? Like they look so different. They were aggressive Viscerai decks that just continually spit out split damage. So maybe the decks are so flexible that they can just do that, and Viscerai is just the hero you should be playing. But I do think it's interesting.
Yeah, I think Viscerai these days, like, I don't think, yeah, they're not on like the Marvin Skies stuff anymore, but they
Yeah.
still have a configuration where they're not trying to stack rune chants on
Yeah.
turn. And they still do like just play like a mini combo thing into Dromai, where they'll have like one turn where they're like, okay, Mordred something Revel, and then they have like 5, 6, 7 rune chants, and then they pop Skeleton on that turn to like do a Sonata for X equals 3 or something. And that's still just enough, right? Because Dromai, all the arcane is just true damage into Dromai, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I was looking at from, I guess, what's happening in the meta on Living Legend. I like using Fab Blazing. Shout out to Fab Blazing. I think this website is cool. I like data. Just looking at win rate. So this is the last 14 days. I'm guessing this is 3,244 matches in the last 14 days. I'm going to guess this is also Talishar data, if I had to guess. Not sure how you get that volume of games without it, but it has Briar with the highest win rate. Briar and Chain.
Ooh.
So, but bearing in mind that I guess 7 days ago, so let's go 7 days actually because of the banning. It does have Briar still in Chain. So yeah, I don't know. That's really interesting to me. I think what you can take away is the ninjas are done though. With Zephyr going, it doesn't look good for them.
I was actually just going to bring up Zen, actually. I think if we talk about Predator for Viscerai, I think Zen is where I'd start.
Because of all the Zen state and things, and you have bonds and all that.
You have one bonds, but the 3 Warmongers.
Wait, is bonds also
bonds is restricted, right?
in Living Legend? Is it?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sure.
But yeah, it's the Warmongers being back, like 3 Warmongers being back, and the Zen state. You get to. I mean, this happened in CC as well, right? Where Zen was favored into Viscerai for this reason.
Yeah, but Viscerai has Scalata.
Well, yeah, but on the Viscerai side, you are always forked between needing to take the Zen's entire turn of damage and then potentially get hosed by Warmongers at the end, or them saying, okay, transcend, make a Zen state pass, for example. And the moment they've transcended, now that Hat can at any point just go make a Zen state. So Viscerai just kind of gets caught in a bit of an awkward spot in that matchup. Like, they need to win really, really quickly. Like, they need to have their, like, Mordred Revel, like, Skeletor pop-off, like, before the Zen transcends even once, basically. I'll give the edge to Zen in the matchup. The question is whether Zen can, like, beat the Starvo. And that's definitely a question mark. Which is why I think it might be, like, a triangle type thing with, like, Viscerai, Zen, Starvo.
Is Nu good? Is Nu good into Viscerai? Or just Viscerai just not care?
Fine.
Like, cause Florian, like Stack Florian was so good into Nu, I think. Into like standard Nu builds. You had to really tick for that matchup.
Yeah. Nu into Viscerai, it's tough. It needs to be explored, I would say. Siren's Call doesn't do that much in that matchup. So can you make your new deck aggressive enough to actually make the Viscerai care? Because I think what they will want to do is just like stack on you, right?
100%. Definitely.
Yeah, and it's stack on you, and they have defense reactions. So can you actually output enough damage? Remains to be seen. I'm a little bit doubtful, but maybe someone can. Like, maybe it's time for Mark Nu to come and shine and deal some damage.
Legend. Far out. That's depressing.
Hell yeah.
Last,
Save a bloodshed. Let's go.
Last one I want to talk about is Dash.io because it's kind of a bit of an outlier here. It is an aggressive deck, but it is not. And it's an aggressive deck that isn't. Runeblade has that kind of taken maybe a ninja slot as the aggressive deck post Zephyr Needles.
Also gets affected by the Warmonger's unrestriction. Dash.io is vulnerable to that card. However, not as vulnerable as something like a Briar.
Yeah.
There are enough times you Warmongers a Dash.io and they just say, okay, cool, here's 4 boost cards. Arsenal, my thing. So you kind of need to be cognizant of when you resolve the card into them. Like, if they have 1 or 2 processes out and then you Warmongers them, then that's very good. Then that's awesome. But yeah, I mean, Dash.io still strong. I'm curious to see where the lists land, whether it's going to be just a more standard boost kind of thing with high octane in it, or are they going the full system reset route that we saw Sam Sutherland do at Worlds in Osaka, right?
It's so hard. It's just inconsistent. I don't know. It's probably correct though. Like if the hero is playable, it's because of the not playable, but if the hero is good, it's because of that power of system reset. Surely, like that is so powerful.
Could be, yeah, because I feel like you probably just get fatigued by something like a Starvo if you don't set that kind of thing potentially.
I think so surely.
Yeah, definitely a very skill expressive deck though. That's a sort of deck where I wouldn't be surprised maybe it doesn't do so well throughout Pro Quest season, but at Worlds it shows up and just takes the event by storm because the skill ceiling on the deck, especially the system reset version, it's massive. You need to know exactly what you're doing. There's so many moving parts. Very mechanologist feel for sure.
Yeah, I have no clue what I'm gonna play at my Living Legend Pro Quest next weekend. So get into the comments. Let me know what you think I should play. I mean, Viscerai is definitely it's right there in front of me. It's probably the easy option. Yeah. But is Dromai somewhat playable? Maybe not. I think Chain is just too at the mercy of Warmongers. I can't bring myself to be playing Chain. I don't want to play Starvo. I don't particularly enjoy playing the hero. So yeah. Drop it in the comments. Let me know what you think. Kano? Maybe I'll play Kano? I don't know. We'll see.
Our recommendation would just be play Viscerai, and probably. If you don't have too much time to prepare, then play Starvo.
I would just play Viscerai. I would just play Viscerai if I didn't have much time to prepare, because I've played so much of that hero in all its different iterations.
Muscle memory yet.
Yeah. Let's get on to Classic Constructed, because I want to pose a question to you, Pankaj, when it comes to Classic Constructed. And first we go back to week 1 of Pro Quest to do this. Week 1 of Pro Quest saw Gravy Bones shipwrecked looter with the most wins. Also, one thing that's interesting is they're starting to publish not number of wins, but percentage of wins, which is just, it's kind of annoying because you just have to work out roughly the numbers. Like you can easily do it, but it's fine. It doesn't really bother me. They're roughly the same amount of events each weekend, give or take, 10% or something of events, maybe 20% in some weeks, depending on callings and things. But week 1, Gravy Bones takes 15 wins, Syndra takes 14, Verdance takes 11, and I think our kind of discourse last week was these are the 3 decks. These are the kind of 3 S tier or tier 1 decks or whatever you want to call them with the format. These are the decks to beat, right? These are the decks that you should probably be considering between, unless you've got another angle into the metagame. Maybe in your meta you're going to see a lot of Syndra and Verdance, not much Gravy, so can you kind of choose a deck because of that? And we'll get into some of these wild cards and things like that afterwards. But we had a real shake-up in week 2 where all of a sudden Verdance went from the deck with the third most wins to the deck with the most wins last week, to Syndra still maintaining that second spot. But Gravy Bones dropped right off, and actually KO and Auxilio had the same number of wins as Gravy last week, 7% of the win share versus Syndra and Verdance. I mean, Verdance was 3 times the wins that Gravy Bones had last weekend. Syndra almost in the same slot as well. So a real gulf opening up between Verdance and Syndra last weekend.
Oh, Verdance and Gravy, you mean?
Sorry, no, a gulf opening up between Verdance and Syndra and the rest of the field.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So, we'll have a question for you, actually. This is... if you asked me beforehand, how much effect you cannot play a Pro Quest again after you've won would have on the results, my take was that I don't expect there to be that much of a difference, to be honest. Do you think... But if you told me there was like one hero where this affects disproportionately more than other heroes, my guess would have been Gravy, because of how skill expressive that deck is in its current iteration. Every good Gravy player needs to be extremely well practiced on that deck to be able to take down a Pro Quest. Do you think that is potentially influencing this data a little bit? That there were like 15 good Gravy players that won the first week, and then they don't get to play anymore, and then that's potentially a reason why he's down? It feels like a bit of a stretch to me, even as I say it. But I know some people are thinking that. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's not significant enough to be worrying about. I think there's probably some of that, but there's more than 15 good players who can pilot Gravy. Well, so many good players didn't win Pro Quest last week. But
yeah.
But so many good players didn't win Pro Quest last weekend. Like I look around, even my local Pro Quest, I look around some of the events that people traveled to, or tweets I saw of people not quite getting there in the first week of Pro Quest, and I'm just like, there's so many good players out there in terms of. So I just don't think it's significant enough. But
I agree. Yep.
No.
Yeah.
There you go.
I agree. I think if this had an impact at all, like suppose the Pro Quest change didn't happen and you could play another Pro Quest after you win, I don't think that explains this level of gap between Syndra, Verdance, and Gravy now. Like, maybe I'll grant you, maybe Gravy wins 10% instead of 7%. But it doesn't explain the difference of 7% to 21% that is currently what's being showcased in week 2. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, for me, it's just the fact that Gravy Bones was top dog week 1. And we spoke about it even before week 1 of like, the 3 decks going into Pro Quest season are Verdance, Syndra, Gravy Bones. And we got proven right in week 1. And then what we said last week is that now you get to start to target a meta and start to angle in towards into 2 of these 3 decks. You can do that in a really big way. One thing that I said last week is that I still think Verdance is the best deck in the format. I think it's the most powerful deck. And I think when I have to go back and have a listen, I feel like we were chopping and changing between how we were ranking these heroes. I think you were ranking Syndra, Gravy, Verdance. I think I was Verdance, Syndra, Gravy maybe at that point, but I had also flipped from the previous week. So and then I was like, wow, you know what? Actually, Verdance, when you look at it on paper, matchup spread wise, it should in theory be the worst of those 3 decks, but it just has such a good matchup spread into a lot of the other heroes. And what I'm going to point to now is let's take a look at these heroes that have a couple of wins this past weekend, that 7, 5, even 4% on some of these heroes. Acilio, good Gravy Bones matchup. Dash.io, pretty good Gravy Bones matchup. Correia of the Golden Sand, I think a fair. I think people are building it to try and have a good Gravy Bones matchup, right? Florian, not so much. Kano, not so much. Prism, I think it's okay. It's okay. It depends.
Yeah, it's in the fifth. It's in the who knows the matchup better sort of realm, I think.
Dory, good matchup into Gravy Bones. Jarl, I think people have been trying to build it to have a good matchup and sort of go the destroy fatigue route. Whether that's effective, maybe at a Pro Quest level it is. So I just think that basically a lot of these heroes that we were speaking about trying to take your angle into the format, some people have been picking heroes that are just good into Gravy Bones. You know, like, okay, Acilio, I'm going to target the Gravy Bones and the Verdance matchup.
And the Verdance.
Yeah. And you just kind of take the Syndra matchup
too.
as a bad matchup. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Acilio is targeting Verdance Acilio, and then you are sacrificing Syndra.
Exactly. So, do we think now, have we entered a state where it's the 2 best decks in the format and Gravy Bones is actually down a tier, or is this just a result of people targeting Gravy Bones more this week? People aren't seeing, just realizing how powerful Verdance actually is, and Syndra just still being the best aggro deck in the format. And next week, Gravy Bones will be in the top 3 again, probably most likely.
Yeah, I think Gravy's place hasn't moved. I would use this week more as it seems a little bit more of like an outlier in terms of data, I think. Which happens, right? Any sort of statistics, there sometimes a probability goes one way.
Yeah, for sure.
And you just have a bit of an outlier. That's my read on this. I wouldn't read too much into Gravy Bones falling off the meta from this data. Because if you ask me what a Verdance Predator is, I mean, it's Gravy Bones, right? That is the Predator for Verdance. Like, it's not a sure win. It's not a lunch matchup. It's like Verdance gets to sit and play the game. But do you have any other Predators for Verdance? I'd say the other Predator would be Acilio. And actually, to some extent, Syndra as well. But yes, to your point, Verdance is very strong, where bad matchups aren't even that bad.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she is right up there. Although, I mean, I still stick to, like, my initial ranking of these 3 top decks. So I'm just like, all these other decks that you listed out, by the way, none of them are Syndra Predators. Once again, there's just a lack of a Syndra Predator throughout this entire classic constructed wins pie chart, except Victor. Except for Victor, like, that's the only Syndra Predator. Go down as a KO, that's like a 50-50, maybe slight Syndra favored, actually, I'd argue. Gravy is favored for Syndra, Acilio is favored for Syndra. Oh, Dash.io. Dash.io is the Syndra Predator. After that, it's like your Kasai, your Florians, your Kanos, everything else is just like, okay, Syndra gets to play. So to me, Syndra is still kind of up there.
Dory's good into Syndra as well. I think what this highlights for me is, so I don't disagree with you in terms of I think that Gravy Bones is still the 3rd best deck. I think what this does highlight to me though is the difference between a favorable matchup and a how favorable a matchup is or how unfavorable a matchup is. So, for instance, I think you look down the list and you go, this is the thing we spoke about with Verdance last week. It's like, deck's really powerful, but what are its like really good matchups? Well, what are its really bad matchups? Like, it doesn't have that many matchups that are terrible, right? Like, it has a lot of matchups that are winnable. And I would argue, actually, in terms of like the Syndra matchup, I just don't think the Syndra matchup is that bad for Verdance anymore. I think it's like, it's really close. Like, I think it's like really close to 50-50 now, honestly, in my game playing experience. So all of a sudden, if I think that Verdance is actually, trading matches with, trading blows with the other best deck in the format, then yeah, I think Verdance to me is the best deck in the format. Syndra, to your point, I agree. But what Syndra has to deal with is, no real bad matchups, but you have to play all these aggro mirrors that you just kind of don't have the as much autonomy in the matchup, and a lot of them are like 55ers for you, and you're just going to lose a bunch of those because it's only 55%, whereas Verdance gets to sit down across from a Florian or some of these other matchups and just goes, okay, cool, I'll take my win, thank you.
Although your point about Verdance like trading blows with Syndras, that's kind of the same thing as when Syndra plays across another aggro deck, right?
It is
trading blows. Yeah, what's your take on the the Verdance Gravy matchup? It sounded like you had thoughts on that.
Oh, I think it's Gravy favored. No, I think just 2 points.
Yeah,
Gravy is the predator for Verdance, but if Gravy Bones is dropping off, again, another point of favor in Verdance for Verdance, right? So, and the thing about trading blows is the same with Syndra playing into other aggro decks. Yeah, it is, but there's just so many of them now. Like even KO, good matchup for Syndra, but it's like 55-60 at best, I think. Acilio, same sort of thing, 55-60 at best. So, and I think Verdance has more 65-70% in the matchups. So I just think that's, and like I said, I just don't think that Syndra is no longer. I think it's no longer a bad matchup for you. And if Gravy Bones is falling off, all of a sudden I'm like, I see why Verdance is winning the most Pro Quest this past weekend, and will likely do the same again next weekend.
I think as the meta narrows a little bit more as we get to Worlds, I'm still going to maintain that I think Verdance, next to Syndra and Gravy, seems to be just the matchups between those three top decks. To me, still feels like Verdance is the weakest amongst.
I agree.
Yeah.
Although I think it's a lot closer now with Syndra. So.
Also, but I'd still rather be on the Syndra side. Is the way I felt when I played both sides of the matchup, basically.
Yeah, I'm not sold anymore. I'm almost thinking this is like, it's starting to move into like almost a triangle of like Syndra beats Gravy, Gravy beats Verdance, Verdance beats Syndra. Like I'm if we get to Worlds and that happens, I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think that's because
then you're saying Verdance is favored into Syndra, which is
a
step further from saying it's 50-50.
I can't see it getting any better than 55 for Verdance, but I'm not ruling out that happening. So in some way you have some sort of a triangle. The arrow is bigger, the Gravy into Verdance side, I would say, but it doesn't stop it from being that kind of that triangle. I think my question now is basically what happens in the next 2 weeks of Pro Quest season. Is there a hero that positions itself to try and fight for that third best deck or fourth best deck in format? I'm going to say against Gravy Bones. If Gravy Bones, I assume Gravy Bones will pick it up, but I wouldn't be surprised. My prediction would be Gravy Bones has third most win share this coming week. So is there a deck that can compete with that and say, actually, I'm good into Verdance and Syndra, and I'm going to compete to be that third best deck in this format as Gravy Bones kind of falls away?
Yeah, so let's talk about dark horses then.
Yeah.
And actually, I did go ahead and find the references I was talking about earlier. So the Puffin, go check out Cup of TCG, that YouTube channel for the Puffin deck tech that won a Pro Quest, and that Pro Quest finals was the Puffin mirror, and they talk about it in the deck tech as well. So go check that one out. And then the Cheeto or the RKO, whatever you want to call it, 17th at Calling Hamburg, they did a deck tech on Man Sands channel, actually.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that very much as well. I believe the player's name, Lorian. So go check that out as well if you are interested in these dark horse meta picks, and go figure out what their matchup spreads are and stuff, and see if you're sold on that, because I think that'll be interesting.
Yeah. So can we go down the list then and just have a bit of a look? So KO took. So let's start with KO and Acilio, because they both took the same wins as Gravy Bones last week. Can they be that third deck? They don't have good matchups into Verdance and Syndra.
Oh, Acilio does. Well, not Syndra, but Acilio
Yeah.
has good matchups into Verdance and Gravy, which I think puts him in a fine spot. And then into Syndra, you are the underdog, but you can high roll your way. I think on the Calling Hamburg stream, we saw one of the Acilio players actually just fully like roll a Syndra because they just found turn 0 Surge of Brilliance, comboed off on turn 2, and then Syndra just died. Can happen. It's an aggro race, which you are the underdog in that aggro race because Syndra doesn't need to do anything unfair. Doesn't need to find something specific. They just do their normal thing, and you need to find your combo by like turn 3. But you have a much better Verdance matchup than the Syndra, and you have a much better Gravy match. I guess you have a similar Gravy matchup as the Syndra does, but you get a much better Verdance matchup.
I think
that's the trade-off you're making with Acilio.
Yeah. Okay. But Acilio can still, again, it's an aggro mirror against Syndra. It can still do damage.
And Mind Warp is a very good card in aggro mirrors.
Very much is. I think Dash.io suffers. That's probably the deck that I would say, a deck that we were talking about significantly in week 1 of Pro Quest being a really good pick coming off the back of Shizuoka Dash.io, because we're seeing, you thought Gravy was one of the best decks. I thought Gravy was one of the best decks. We saw Syndra being potentially the best deck, and Verdance hadn't quite, it was kind of falling away. It was like the third of those, to your point, right? So it was like, Dash.io, great. But as Verdance sort of rises to the top, at least in this past week, I think that, and Gravy Bones falls away, I like that's not good for Dash.io, I think, in terms of its prospects.
Oh, I suppose. I'm not entirely sure how much I want to say that Gravy Bones is falling off.
No.
And like I said, I think this week results are a little bit more.
If it did, though, I think if it did, right? If Verdance and Syndra just kind of continue to take that win share, and it was a deck that was fighting for that third spot with Gravy, if it did sort of fall away, I think that's not good for Dash.io, right? That's not. If it was the other way around, it's like, Verdance is falling off, and to our point in week 1, like I think Dash.io was a great pick for week 1 of this Pro Quest season. It's not the deck I'd be looking towards this weekend if I'm not playing. Because basically what I'd like us to get to is, what deck would you recommend this coming weekend if you're going to go and play a Pro Quest that isn't one of those top 3 decks? For me, it's not Dash.io, it's not KO Armed and Dangerous, it might be Acilio, though.
Yeah, could be Acilio. Yeah, that's actually a tough question. I'm not sure. Yeah, is there a hero that exists that beats both Verdance and Syndra?
That's the question, right? A hero that beats both Verdance and Syndra. I'm not sure there is.
I don't think there is, because honestly, the main factor for this is that there are very few decks that beat Verdance. Is the thing, right? Like Verdance, as we talked about earlier, seems to be the most constricting right now at the top of the metagame. Like, she's the one which we've spoken about before, like has the arc of those oppressive decks in the past where they have these matchups where they can't lose, but in the matchups where they're supposed to be unfavored into, they still get to sit down and play the game, and it feels kind of unfair. So like, we just need to start with what are Verdance's bad matchups. We can name like 3, and then are any of them good into Syndra? No. So then there you have it. There's no answer to that question. Then, so, like, you tell me what's good into Verdance? Gravy, not good into Syndra though. So but that's not it. What else is?
That's why I think they're the 2 best decks in the format, Verdance and Syndra, because they just oppose each other perfectly, and I think that their matchup is now so close. But Verdance doesn't really have bad matchups. Syndra doesn't really have bad matchups. So it's
Verdance has a bad matchup in Gravy Bones.
Sure, yeah, I agree, but I guess Gravy Bones is maybe suffering a bit from like all the Acilios and the Dash.ios of the world and the Syndras of the world, right? And does have a lot of bad matchup. Well, not a lot, but it has a significant number of bad matchups compared to some of these other heroes. So I just think that these 2 are kind of, to me, they're striding away a little bit, and Gravy Bones is the 3rd best deck in the format. That's kind of where it sits for me right now.
Yeah, we are coalescing even further and further, right? A few weeks ago, we were like, okay, there's 5 heroes. Yep. There's Verdance, Syndra, Gravy, Florian, KO. As weeks progress, we're like, Florian and KO are dropping off. They're not very convincing anymore. And now we're maybe at the point where Gravy is falling off. I'm still not sure, because I think Gravy's Syndra matchup, just again, we saw Justin Koo pilot that match. And it's like, yeah, you're supposed to be unfavored, but Gravy is still doing Gravy things in a matchup. You get Conquerors off, for example, and the Syndras aren't prepared, you can actually still very much get there. So I don't think Gravy's Syndra matchup is cursed, for example. It's like 40, and if you get to have a Verdance matchup that's like better than 60, for example, then you're like, Gravy's actually, just right up there. What else What else has a good Verdance matchup aside from Gravy Bones? Can you think of anything else?
What else is a good? Why don't we have a look at the stats? While I'm looking that up, one thing I'll ask you is which.
No, right? Yeah.
Let me have a look. But one question I'll pose before then is which hero has the. So does Verdance have a better Gravy matchup than Gravy has a Syndra matchup? Like which one has the better win? I guess the better matchup into their other respective deck, because I think that's a big telling point as well, right?
Verdance. I'll put Verdance there. I think Verdance players would be happier to play against Gravy than Gravy players are happy to play into Syndra.
I think that tells you a big story. I think
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah, it comes down to that same thing, right? Your bad matchups aren't as bad, basically.
Yeah.
Which is where Verdance is.
I think that tells you something. So I'm just looking at some of the data from the past few weeks of paper events. I'm actually going to go to Calling Hamburg. I think is an interesting one. Just go back to Verdance's match, because Verdance was very highly repped at that event. Dash.io had a good win rate into it. Had a 60% win rate into Verdance at that event, which is quite interesting. So maybe I'm wrong about Dash.io, and it's better than I'm sort of giving it credit for in that matchup. But other than that, honestly, nothing. When I look at
Acilio's favorite into Verdance. That we know.
Yeah, I mean, it was 50-50 at this event. But again, this is one sample size, right? So I think that's... Yeah, I think that's one thing.
So coming back to decks that go into Verdance. Okay, so we have, like, Gravy. We have... I would say Syndra is a slight favorite into Verdance. But yeah, I do agree it's close. I would give it, like, 55%.
And Acilio.
Acilio's going to Verdance. Actually, that Cheeto Deck Tech on Man's Sense channel, they asserted that they think Reviled KO is good into Verdance, but has a bad Syndra matchup, which is, at the end of the video, they do a little matchup matrix for Reviled KO, which I thought was an interesting take. I believe the strat is to fatigue the Verdance, and because you have Arg Smash, they cannot actually set up potions into you. You'll just, like, destroy the potions.
Yeah.
And you have resources and stuff like AB. I'm curious how replicable that is, to be honest. I think every single time I've heard someone say they want to fatigue a Verdance, I have been unimpressed with the plan, because I'm not sure how much I've accounted for Millennium Tree being back in the Verdance list.
Card is so
the
good.
Millennium Tree with the 6 Arcanes just makes it, in my opinion, very, very difficult to actually fatigue a good Verdance that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how much I would just need to explore the matchup more to know whether Reviled KO was actually favored into Verdance. But for now, I guess, going by what's been established, we have Acilio, Gravy, they're good into Verdance, and both of them have negative Syndra matchups. So
Prism is good into Verdance. And Prism's Syndra matchup is not terrible, but I think it's quite dire. It's very dire roll dependent, basically.
Is Prism good into Verdance, or is it just you play a game?
I don't know. Like, if I look at Teleshar stats, and we shouldn't always take Teleshar stats, of course, but if this game of this month, it does have a 60% win rate into Verdance, and traditionally I would say, obviously it's gotten better, right, because of the access of spells that you have. But I think it's still Prism favored, honestly.
Funnily enough, it actually kind of got worse, because what the Verdance has cut for Light Up the Leaves was the copies of red and yellow fruits. So they actually have fewer 7-power poppers now.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So,
which maybe made it better.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, we got a comment on last week's pod, right, from Kevin. Shout out again to SmurfFab. If you aren't checking out his YouTube content, go and do so, especially if you are interested in Prism. But like you said, kind of thinks we're right, but could, if like I said, if the meta is all Gravy, Syndra, and Verdance, and you're not having to deal with your Florians and your KOs and things like that. Like, that is better for Prism, right? That is better for Prism. I don't know what the Acilio matchup is like, what the Dash.io matchup is like, because that's the other one where you go, okay, what about the next sort of few heroes in that sort of that tier? I mean, Acilio looks like it does have a Prism is favored into Acilio if I look at kind of just like Teleshar stats going off that. Again, that's not the be all and end all. And then if I look at Prism into, what was the other deck we're talking about? Dash.io, it is unfavored into Dash.io, but okay, 1 out of 5 potentially.
I have to say, once we start talking about like prisms and dash IOs and Asilios, these very niche specialist type heroes, I feel less and less trusting of Punisher data, to be honest.
I agree.
As you pointed out, we already take it with a grain of salt, but especially when you're talking about like prisms and Cilios and Dios, where it's the skill disparity of players on these decks is actually like night and day. It's not like when you play against a good Florian player versus an average Florian player, the skill differences aren't as exhibited.
Sure.
But when it's like prisms and dash outs and Asilios, you feel, you can tell.
You do.
When you're playing against someone who knows exactly what they're doing and someone.
But those heroes just are inherently less powerful, I think. Honestly, that's a big part of it as well. So that is why I would always just default to, well, there's the three most powerful decks, and they're probably the three best decks. So I think if we're coming to some sort of conclusion here, it is that, well, I'm going to come to my conclusion. You can come to your conclusion, or you can say the points of differentiation to my conclusion, Pankaj. How about that? So I think my conclusion is that I do think Verdance is the best deck in the format. I think it's really close though, and I think Syndra is like right there next to it, and I do think Gravy is third in that pecking order now, just because of the other decks in this format that are proving themselves. I think that those next three decks, Acilio, Dashio, I think Prism. I think I'm going to throw Prism in there for this weekend. I think Prism might be a good pickup this weekend, but you need to know what you're doing, and I think you need to have the right list. And if you think people are packing Poppers and Tech View on the sideboard, it is really tough. Hopefully they're packing all their Warmongers and stuff like that for the Dash IOs out there, and doing less of Poppers in their sideboard. But I think that's where I'm at on those 6 heroes right now.
I want to take a moment and actually talk about the wild cards that we promised we were going to talk about, and on the thumbnail. So let's start with Puffin.
Yeah,
I guess we already touched on it a little bit.
Definitely
we did. Go check out the deck tech on Cup of TCG. I think the Verdance matchup is rough, I think, for the Puffin. Gravy is interesting. Like, Gravy does struggle with on-hits, and Puffin does put a fair number of on-hits, but I believe Puffin's like ability to clear like every single type of ally is sometimes a little constrained on like certain hands as well. Sometimes you just have like your big boat, and then they have a Sawbones or Rigor Mortis. You have to go Rigor Mortis, maybe if you have the cogs, you can like send your gun at it. But it can be a little dicey. Syndra is...
That's close.
An aggro race. Yeah, now that I've listed out Puffin's like matchups into those top 3, doesn't sound super compelling.
Do you remember with Puffin? You should probably just play one of the other aggro decks. You should probably just play Syndra or Dash IO or Acilio. I think the problem is that Puffin doesn't have a specific niche angle that's better than any of those heroes have, or that you could have with any of those heroes. That's my problem with Puffin, honestly. But what I would say is, if you want to go ahead and play Puffin, I think now's the time to do it. Like, if you're like, I've been waiting, I got my cold foil Puffin, I got my cold foil Poly, like I've been waiting to play my Puffin. I think if you're going to do it, now is the time to do it.
Puffin's like a more resilient Dash IO, maybe. Yeah, like, it feels like it's a similar spot as like Dash IO, where you don't want to play like the Ninja aggro deck. You don't play like the Mech aggro deck.
Yeah.
You get, and similar to Dash IO, where you gain a lot of advantage if you get to go first. You get to assemble like a couple of cogs. Like the deck runs like 12 copper cogs or something.
That's
so
fair.
Similar, where it's like in your aggro race, you can go first and still be very happy. Actually, you probably want to go first.
It sacrifices power for robustness, I guess, in some ways. Like, it's less susceptible to fatigue and those sorts of things, but it sacrifices some of your top end power of a Dash IO.
And you get a lot of advantage in people not knowing how to block your boats. Like, Cogwork's Dovetail is one of those cards where you need to have experience blocking against it to know exactly how to block it. And Cogwork's Zeppelin as well. These two big boats, very, very annoying. And Palantir Aeronaut is a power play available to the deck that can definitely...
Good damage.
Yeah, a lot of damage, or, like, blow up a piece of equipment. Like, if people aren't... That's the other thing, right? I think you get to capitalize a lot on people's maybe inexperience. Like, maybe they're like, oh, they see your Zeppelin or whatever, and then it's like, okay, cool, let me give you some armor over here. And okay, cool, arrow not here, and then you blow up the thing they blocked with earlier, right? For example, that's the sort of thing where when you don't have experience, you might just catch people on those sort of plays.
100%.
What else? Okay, Marlin's on the thumbnail.
Go for it.
Touch on this in the comment. My Okay, honestly, I was strongly considering bringing Marlin to Seattle Battle-Hardened. My biggest problem is just Warmonger's diplomacy is unreasonably good into that deck. The hero already, it's not like she has this nuts matchup spread that like makes her like an incredibly strong contender. I think you have a good Syndra matchup. You get to play the game into Verdance and you get to play the game into Gravy, which is like fine. And the hero's fun, so I'm like, okay, that could be good enough. And you get to leverage a little bit on people's lack of experience into you, which is cool. But the fact that some Syndra's on Warmongers now, and you can actually just fold that matchup too because they run the card. Like Marlin, unlike the other rangers, doesn't have a weapon that loads, right? So if they Warmongers you and you don't have an arrow in arsenal already, your turn is literally just pass. And the best thing you can do is all piece, and if you have 3 of a kind, you can like just play 3 of a kind, crack a couple of gold, and maybe pass back just with a 7-card hand.
Yeah.
But it's just the card is it's so unfair into her that it kind of puts me off her. For matchup spread wise, I'm like, yeah, it's I think it's an okay pick. It's definitely solid like tier 2. I would it's definitely not up there as like, oh, this is like a very, very strong pick. Matchup spread wise, but once you factor that into account with her vulnerability to Warmongers, that to me makes her not very convincing. But honestly, huge congrats to the one player who did get the first Marlin LL points. So that is very inspiring for sure.
100%. I wouldn't mind having a little chat about our friend Arachne Huntsman. Interesting hero. Has now picked up a Pro Quest win. A hero that we were talking about because it made the finals of a Battle Hardened recently in the hands of Taylor Morrow. And, not a hero that people have talked about. Arachne Huntsman often uttered in the same sentences as Olympia and Betsy and these sorts of heroes. But, is actually, when you look at it, it's good into, from what I understand, it's good into Dash.io in particular. It has game into Verdance, especially if you banish the right cards early. I've seen it. I've watched it beat Verdance. I'm not saying it's good. It has game. I'm not saying it's favorable. But especially people don't know how to play into it. I think that's what Arachne Huntsman is getting a lot of mileage out of right now, is people not knowing how to play into it. I think your Gravy matchup is pretty terrible, honestly. And your Syndra matchup, I actually don't think it's good. But apparently...
Oh, it's not? I thought it was. I thought that was the reason to play the deck.
I think people right now are beating Syndras because they don't know how to play into Arachne Huntsman, I think. But I think that might change.
That's actually how I feel about the Huntsman Verdance match. Like, you tell me Verdances are losing to it, I think that's a big... Just they don't fully know what to expect from a matchup. And once they know how to play against it, again, it just comes back to the same thing. I keep hearing again and again people saying their plan into Verdance is to fatigue. And I'm just like, that really shouldn't be working against Worlds level, like Verdance players. Maybe it works at like a Pro Quest level, but that's not a replicable strategy as we get closer to Worlds, in my opinion.
Yeah. I have one last deck. I want to talk about one last deck. You can talk about Kasai if you want to. I don't want to talk about Kasai. I just don't. I think we just said so much about it. Nothing's changed in my opinion about Kasai.
I don't have much to say on that hero either. That I've not already said.
Yeah. I want to talk more about Arachne. This time Marionette, though. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Marionette. Okay.
Marionette, because this is my perspective, and you know a lot more about Marionette than I do, so just maybe let me know. But my view is, from games I've played, Syndra is a good matchup for you. Not a great matchup for you, but I think it's a good matchup for you. I think you can definitely... Gravy Bones is falling away a little bit, but I don't think that matchup's ever been terrible. And I think your Verdance matchup is... I think if you don't have to worry about Gravy, I think you can lean more into your Verdance matchup to the point where potentially, could you... I guess this is my question for you, is could you make Arachne good into Syndra and Verdance and kind of sacrifice your Gravy matchup a little bit?
Oh, that's interesting. Better into Syndra, yep, I could see that. Better into Verdance, that is a tough ask, I think.
Okay.
Because no matter how you slice it, that hero still relies on marking to do the strong stuff.
Yeah.
And Verdance has a lot of ways
prevention
to just not let herself get marked.
Okay.
And also, like Verdance has stuff to, like, there's so many D-Reacts in the deck. There's like 9 D-Reacts in the deck, and there's like 3 mental blocks and 3 just D-Reacts or shelters as well.
Mental block's so annoying.
Yeah,
maybe that's the card. Maybe that's the card we ban. Honestly.
Could be. Yeah, so like it's hard to like get a mark on the Verdants, and then the disruption as well. There are times like Verdants can like kind of dodge it. Like I've seen like good Verdants players be like, okay, cool, you're selling this thing at me. I'm going to discard my fruits in response to this other thing. Like, okay, cool, congrats, pass back to you, and like, what are you up to? But yeah, maybe I'm gonna put a low vote of confidence in that, and I will also sort of reject the premise, so to speak, that you don't need to worry about gravy anymore. And if you don't
No,
fixing that,
I'm not saying you don't need to. I'm saying if you
Yeah, I
didn't.
know.
If you
Yeah.
didn't, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess not reject, but like call back to
Yeah.
that this is the assumption we're operating under, and when we're already under the assumption and it's not looking amazing, and you recall that you still need to worry about gravy, I'm like, it seems like not the time for the assassins. They had a time in the sun this whole past, year, pretty.
Yeah.
Now it's some other heroes, some of the glasses time to shine.
Okay. Well, I think unless you have anything else to add, Pankaj, that kind of does it for episode 235 of Arsenal Pass. What do you want to add? Anything?
Yeah, just last thing. Florian did fall further in week 2 as we expected. I think week 1 we were both surprised. Like, how was Florian like right up there? Florian was like right next to Verdance last week. Like Verdance like 11 wins and Florian was a 9.
Crazy.
And it was like surprising. Kasai was next to Florian. Like Kasai was 8. But then now they've both dropped down to like the 4%, and I think that is where they will stay. Last week was a bit of more of an anomaly, a bit more of people reacting, realizing that KO is not that good anymore, and Florian's not that good anymore, and then now we're finally in their place, I would say.
The funny thing is that's good for KO. Florian and Kasai dropping away.
True.
So maybe KO does. Maybe I put Prism in that kind of 6th slot at the moment. Maybe it's more KO. Maybe they're the kind of, because to me it's like a very clear 3, and then the next 3 were the kind of decks I spoke about. But maybe it's like a 3, a 2. So it's like Acilio and Io are the next 2 decks, and then the next group under that. We kind of spoke about it last week. I don't want to rehash it, but yeah.
Honestly, yeah, you just bring KO and you're like 50 into everything, and that's a fine place to be. I mean, Noah Bigelman won the AGE East. That was like invite only, like AGE East. Like Noah Bigelman won that on KO. He also put a deck tech on it, so go check that out on the Runaways YouTube channel. Wow, we've just been handing out
everyone.
Free
free marketing. I know.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, go check that deck tech out on the OG KO if you want to take a look at that and see his thoughts behind it. I think it was very interesting.
Cool. All right. Thank you to Arsenal Pass patrons for all your support. Thank you to all of our listeners out there. This has been episode 235 of Arsenal Pass. If you're playing Pro Quest this weekend, best of luck. Just 2 weeks to go to grab that ticket to head over. Well, 3 weeks, and depending on what part of the world you're in, to get your ticket to Yokohama. Best of luck. And until next week, we'll see you in the next episode.